Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome to today's webinar, which is on a very interesting topic, DevSecOps, led by our senior cybersecurity analyst and training specialist, Jeet Rajkumar. Hi Jeet.
Hi Anurag, thank you for inviting me.
So DevSecOps is the philosophy of integrating security practices within the DevOps process. The goal is to bridge the gaps between IT and security while ensuring fast, safe delivery of code. So DevSecOps adds robust security methods to traditional DevOps practices. So without any further ado, I request Jeet to kindly take over. Over to you, Jeet.
Yep. Thank you Anurag. Hi, hello. My name is Jeet. So as Anurag told you, I work as a trainer in Institute of Information Security and analyst in network intelligence. And before going into the topic, I just want to talk about my few of the skills and specialization here. So, like these are my skills on web application, cloud sec, and DevOps, and these are my certifications. Today our main intention or topic is like from traditional model of developing an application and testing. Okay, how people are transitioning to DevSecOps or like the DevOps or DevSecOps. So today our intention is like what are the main challenges or introduction, and what are the main integration challenges also. So like for example, you have many tools and many technologies, but how do you bring together all this technology and tools together and implement one full pipeline? And finally, we'll have some case studies. So that's what today's agenda is. So let me go into first brief, or list of surveys. The first question you'll be asking is, well, what is the use of DevSecOps and why we need to do that in current environment. So these are few news which they say, like for example, if you see the Pentagon is they are moving from traditional waterfall or into DevSecOps model, so that each release of their code can be very faster when compared to traditional models. And one more thing is, if you see the market cap also it's increasing. And other thing is, if you see in the below one, the use cases, the time taken for a normal testing of anything, it is high. Can you see it? 29%, 67% in gray area, 61 and 35. But whereas when you do in a DevSecOps environment, it is an automated one. So ultimately, whatever the testing you do, time reduces. Okay, so that is one of the benefits of in DevSecOps. So these are some market predictions. How in which year they are going to do. So let me first give a small introduction to DevSecOps. What is DevOps? What is DevSecOps, and a little intro. So what they're telling is it is integrated with tools and services and helps your organization to deliver in a secure and timely manner. So that means whenever you're developing in an application, okay, all the security tool and the testing tool is all integrated together, and you can release very faster. And second thing is, normally in let's take your DevOps or normal agile environment, what happens is the developer team will be sitting separate, and server team will be separate, and security team will be separate. But when you're adopting this DevSecOps culture, ideally what happens is every team should be working together, so that you can what you can do is, like, for one good example I can say is developer team would have sent one code push, but whereas server team would have not been ready for the production environment. So again there is a lag. Okay, so when you adopt this culture in a full automated manner, so you can reduce this time. Okay, so that's what they're doing. So ultimately, if the manager or somebody sets a goal for 1 week you have to release faster, okay, so you can implement this DevSecOps culture. And main thing is, so usually what happens once it goes to the production, you do a testing, and then if any developer finds a bug or something, then you come back, right? So in this, the benefit is nothing but you will be reducing that post production works, or any if you come across any false positive. The reason is when you come back again and when you fix it, okay, it will take some amount of time, and sometime it will cost. And it's better if you do a early testing and you fix it, then you fully push into the production. Then if any third party or anybody is doing a testing, so what they will do is all the minimum bugs will be reduced. Okay, only the level 2 or level 3 bugs can be found out. So that's a one more of helping, rather than what do you call, finding small excess bugs, normal SQL bugs. Okay, you can fix it earlier. And second thing is, and the last one is programmatical approach. For example, let's say if I get an application, I take my tool, I do testing, and then I get the result and I analyze. Correct? So if I have a tool which has been integrated in my development environment from start to end, okay, and it's fully automated, okay, so the amount of time which I am implementing, okay, will be less, and I can be very efficient. Okay, so that is one of the main important theme in this DevSecOps. Okay, the programmatical approach. Next question you will be asking is how in what cases DevSecOps can be implemented or something. But whereas if you see the charts here, can you see there are different environments like banking, technology, telecommunication, manufacturing. So if you see everywhere, CI/CD and DevOps pipeline will be higher. Okay, so people are started to implementing it. It's not that they are not going to implement; they started to implementing it. Okay, so that's where this DevSecOps comes into play. Okay, where you need to implement more. Okay, and so yeah. And so whenever I believe everybody will be aware, what is the use of DevOps. DevOps is nothing but you have different tools like GitHub, Jenkins, and Ansible, and you have this Docker container for implementation. So that is nothing but your so you write your code in your IDE, push it to GitHub. From GitHub you send it to Jenkins. From Jenkins you send it to your container and you will run it. So that means your application is fully running. So like that, each commit you make, whatever the changes is made, it will automatically implement it. Okay, so that means let's take in a day or something, you might, or a month, so your frequency of pushing the code will be higher. Okay, so if you don't have a proper security implementation, okay, then it will lead to mistakes. Okay, so that is one problem. And other thing is, the one more big issue is when we say DevSecOps, right? There are many type of combinations. So what one more combination is like, you will have a code in your GitHub, okay, and the production environment or the server which will be in the cloud environment, okay. Or what will happen is all the code repository and the production environment fully will be in the cloud. Or sometimes what it will be your on-premise environment. So there are different scenarios. So in case if you're using any cloud type of environment where you can use serverless to automate things, okay, but we'll come to the case study back, like in which case we are using this serverless scenarios, okay. And other main issue is how you are circulating your sensitive information. One good example I can say is, for example, when you are sending any text secret, for example, okay, whenever you have your Jenkins or in your GitHub, okay, there's in your environmental variables or in your environmental files, which will not be sometime encrypted also, okay. or whenever you're pushing in an application, let's say from Jenkins to your production, that means what you do is you will pull from the Docker container or the registry, and then you will straightly push the code into the container. Okay, and that time, is it visible, or the tokens are available? Okay, so that is all very important. So DevOps means it is it's only implementation of automation to development. But when we consider security, so these are the some issues. And I believe everybody are aware, like what is CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so whenever you integrate your with GitHub or any tools with Jenkins or with GitHub, okay, or GitLab, okay, um, there is many problems. For example, if I'm using a ASP.NET application, okay, so if I have an ASP.NET application and whatever the Azure tools, okay, Microsoft tools which is there, it'll be easy to integrate. Okay, and if I have an open source, let's say I have a Java application, then I will find some open source tool or any checkmarks or Veracode or something I need to integrate. So tools is a other thing which we need to consider very we have to consider a lot of time. And second thing is team skills and technology stack compatibility. So for example, the guy who is implementing end to end, okay, so at least he should be aware like how the process is going on, or somebody will be there, like DevOps guy will be there who will be taking all these things. But sometimes if you take a small company who will be taking care of all full end-to-end pipeline, okay, so those are the challenges which you will be coming across. And communication issue means, let's say you have a different teams. Let's say you're pushing your code to Git, and there is another guy who is maintaining the pipeline, and another guy who's maintaining the production for writing the scripts for your automation, for your containers or Kubernetes or something. Okay, so let's say I'm committing one code. Okay, how does it tell somebody that if any security tool is there, it failed and it goes in reporting? So how do we do that? So these are some communication issues you'll be having in the team. So to be frank, the more the maturity of your DevOps cycle is fully, it'll be helpful. At the initially, you will have more problems. Once the base of your DevOps is being matured, okay, and then slightly you're adding a security, okay, for full scale automation, okay. So that will be very, very tough, and it'll be, but once it is implemented, it will be very helpful. Okay, and cloud service threats. So this is one more important thing. The problem is, let's say some people, what they do is they don't want the code to be present in some third party vendor or something. Okay, so what they will do is they'll be keeping the code in the on-premise, and they will be linked to the cloud environment. So in that case, you will be using AWS or Azure. Okay, so that means you're using multiple technologies. Okay, so let's say if you're using IAM, S3 bucket, and EC2 instance, so threats are available for all those three. Okay, so additional threats will be there. So this is all you need to combat when you're coming for your the cloud security threats. Okay. So I want to say, whenever we try to integrate something, right, there are two things. One is technology, one is tool. Okay, in terms of security. So again, you need to decide according to your company's budget whether you want to go for an open source product or you want to go for a paid product. The reason is, once you started integrating the tool, for a full cycle, okay, so you should be able to know, in case if something happens, you need to know to troubleshoot. Okay, so you write a bunch of scripts for your open source tool, which you integrated or customized. Okay, so it is running every time or in a week or something. But if something happens, or if somebody is there to take care, okay, so that's what is we need to take. So that's where you need to decide whether you go for an open source tool or whether you go for a paid tool like Checkmarx or something. So this is one of the examples. So mostly, if you see many companies, if you're having Java, Maven, and ASP.NET, they'll be having this Sonar Cube. Okay, so each time when you push a code, okay, the Sonar Cube will be integrated. That means it will try to find out what are the vulnerabilities that will be there. But not only the the test cases or policies is there, right? You can write on your own also. The default will be given, but if you want to add something means, so you need to understand how the rules are written. So you need to write your own rules. Okay, so according to your I told you earlier, so the technology will get more complex when you're integrating cloud services. So let's say I have GitLab, I connect with Azure. Okay, so some people what they will do is I have Azure Active Directory and I have code base with the GitHub. Then I will try to integrate with GitHub and Azure pipeline. Okay, and if I want to deploy some any protection, that means I will use the Azure service and all. So once you started integrating, the amount of services you are using, okay, you need to take care of all security threats. Okay, for a very good example is like the CloudFormation template will be there. Okay, so whenever a code pushed or something, you will you will push the CloudFormation template, so such that it deploys all your code, and then it'll start your VM and it'll give you what do you call the application will be up. So that means you should be aware what is a CloudFormation template and how it has been integrated with AWS, and what are the security threats of CloudFormation template, and what are the security threats or the challenges which is there in the integration of IAM. So are you giving any access role? Okay, so whenever this getting triggered, okay, so these are the complex things we need to take care. And again, the choice. So this is pretty interesting. Sometimes it is better to use the native security tool than the the tool which you're buying from vendor. Again, it depends on your environment and the budget. Okay, so for example, you have CloudWatch, CloudTrail, or you have some Macie or Azure Security Center. So these are some different tools which is available in the cloud. Okay, so let's say your whole environment is in Azure environment, okay, or in AWS environment. So you can implement a security center for your Azure, or Amazon Hub or Security Hub for your AWS. Okay, or if you don't want to do like that, okay, so you have your code in your on-premise, okay, and you want to write your own type of tools, you can write using, for example, you can use Python Boto along with your Lambda serverless, or you can customize your again tool with Python calling the particular API. Okay, and you can write it on your own tool. Okay, and other ways, like you can go for some products like what do you call Checkmarx or Veracode, or the people who give some DevOps full cycle products. Okay, so you can go for, again, it depends on your environment, on your budget. Okay, so some people what they will do is some amount of Python testing for your environment will be on what do you call in your AWS. Okay, so there will be one particular scripts which run and checks for your what do you call benchmark is there or not. Okay, but if you don't want that, you can implement this AWS config such that it gives you all the information. Okay, so again, it depends. Okay, the integration challenges. See, so here I just made a stack. Okay, if you see here, CI/CD, you have Jenkins Lab, and if you deploy, you have this container management. So either you can choose Kubernetes or your Kubernetes Mesosphere or Swarm. And if you see Chef Puppet, web server, and then you have this proxy and monitoring. So this is all in your deployment side. But when you see in the cloud side, in the below, you see there are different VMware, Cloud Platform, Azure, AWS, Oracle, or different things are there. And when you see in the left hand side, you have this programming languages like messaging streams, source code repository. So the what I'm trying to say here is there are different technology stacks. So whenever you are implementing a DevOps cycle, okay, so you'll be implementing at least minimum or 6 or 7 stacks. okay, or technologies based on this. But how do you secure each and everything? And if you're securing each and every technology, how you're going to implement security in that, and who's the person who's there? Does he have knowledge on the each and every stack? Okay, so this is what the challenge comes. Okay, so to put it more detail here, this is one of the I believe in DoD of US. I took this slide from them. Okay, it is very clear. Like, can you see it? Deploy, monitor, scale. What are the tools are there? And when you do plan and deploy, you have this Git, Maven, and again, can you see SonarQube? These are the different tools. Contrast, Encore, Metasploit, okay, Nexus. So you have all these different tools, okay, which you can use it to secure. So that's what, again, it depends. So some people, what they will do is they will only they will implement security stack like only to GitHub or the Jenkins. So that means each time when you push the code, SonarQube will run and they will check for whether any bugs are there and they will fix it. But they will not implement, for example, when the code is pushed right to the production side, okay, that may not be an automatic. So whenever the code is being packed into a container and is running, okay, so whether you have to do manually static analysis, dynamic analysis, or what you do is you have to trigger one more dynamic container and point it to your application. So that means each time when you trigger an application, okay, and it's getting deployed, and simultaneously you need to initiate one Zap or Nexus container and start doing the testing. So that's where whether you do it in a manually or in automatically, and that depends. Okay, so that's complex challenges. Yeah. So I have some few questions. So whenever like when you guys are implementing DevSecOps, so you can just decide like what are the questions you can need to ask yourself. So basically, when you're writing your code, for example, Chef Puppet for infra, or you use cloud formation templates, ARM templates, okay, do you implement any sensitive key token in the codes? Because now infrastructure is also automated. Okay, before it was not automated. Now because of SDN, okay, we can automate our infrastructure. Okay, so how do you check it? How do you verify it? Which tools are you going to use? Okay, so those are something important. Okay, scanning tools, whether it's open source or it's a what do you call paid one. If you're using an open sourced one, is it valid or is it giving more false positive? Okay, or are you able to customize it? So if somebody has written in a Ruby or in a Python, okay, so they would have written some logic, but you need into something yourself. So that means you need to edit the particular Python or Ruby to make it for your company so that you can reduce your false positive. Okay, and yeah, so this is what I was talking about. How your security team plays here. So normally, if you see right now, whenever the code is finally pushed to the final production environment, okay, we or the security team will test against your application and will find the particular vulnerabilities and they will come back. Okay, then you will be whether based on your manager's decision or somebody's decision, I mean the team, whether you can fix it or you can take a risk. Okay, that depends. So when we are saying in DevSecOps, as I told you, there are many different technologies and many different tools are implemented. Okay, so what skills is required and how do you is the guy who's sitting is being equipped and how he's able to handle all these different tools and how they are coordinating. Okay, so usually in DevSecOps, what they are telling is at the initial when you make a design, there has to be a guy for a threat modeling, and he can tell, see, this code should not be stored in particular Europe location. Okay, so for example, if you're storing some cache or something in the customer information, okay, because it violates your GDPR. Okay, so rather than going to your development and implementing, you can complete this this thread modeling with the help of security team at the initial design phase. Okay, so that's what the security challenges. And complaints. So you have Ansible, Chef Inspects. There are different tools. Right now, what we do is complaints means we go go to a particular mission, we run some commands or we run some tools. It gives you the information. Okay. So if you want to make it an automated, okay. So let's say whenever you're deploying the code and you can just trigger that particular application or that what do you call this complaints, the inspects of things, so it can check whether this code is allowed or not, whether it's compliant or not. Again, you can make use of automation. Yeah, this is one more big issue. The issue here is how do you orchestration is like a full automation. Okay, so I'm deploying 5 containers or 7 containers. Okay, so I want to have load balancing capabilities and all this stuff, equal distribution. So I might use this Docker Swarm or Kubernetes. Okay, so if I'm writing something, whether I need to use some Python or I should use a YAML or what language I should use it. Okay, so that whenever an application is pushed, okay, so it is running in that particular clustered environment or load balancing environment. Okay, what if one goes down, one comes up? So are we having full knowledge on Docker Swarm? So what if it is getting exposed your API? So whenever you connect, right, it will expose your API. Okay, so if the API is not protected properly, you can get the service tokens. So with the help of the tokens, you can try to access the pods. Okay, so how are we going to manage that? And the thing is, security in the pipeline is nothing but you will write your Jenkins code. Like you write a script such that whenever the code is the code is pulled from GitHub, you will write different steps, right? Like it has to deploy this create a particular container, and that container has to run and it has to go through some test, and it has to stop, or it has to put it in the production. So that means you will be giving credentials in that pipeline. How do you store your credentials? Are you giving any sensitive information in that particular pipeline? And if it is in AWS or in Azure, how you are storing your keys? Okay, so that's important one. And yes, as I told you before, all these 3, okay, even delivery deployment, whether you're doing manual or in automatic, how do you implement security and all this stuff? Okay, different thing. Are you practicing all security standards for each and every components which you're using in your DevSecOps? Okay. Yeah. So software defined, that's what I told you, the Terraform or like the CloudFormation, ARM, the security challenges, how you're going to do. Another thing is encryption. So the thing is, whenever you have your code in your on-premise or something sensitive in your on-premise, okay, you're trying to push it in the cloud environment or storing it in the cloud environment. So are you encrypting the key from the what do you call in the client side, and then you're sending to server so that it doesn't decrypt it there, or the key is present in the cloud environment, so whenever you encrypt it here and whenever you send it there, it automatically decrypts and kept there. Okay, so whenever whatever the information you're sending from client side to server side, you're using cloud type of encryption like KMS and Azure, sorry, in AWS, and Key Vault in Azure. So what type of encryption methodologies are you using? Okay, and that's what. And finally, how do you store your sensitive information by using of encryption, or whether you're logging, for example, CloudTrail and CloudWatch is there. So are you monitoring all the logs which is happening, or who is happening, and the keys will be present in that. Or whenever, sometime what you'll do is you'll automate your user creation. Okay, so whenever you do automated user creation, what will happen is the output, let's say if you don't mask it, Okay, so whenever automatically user creates, if you go to the particular tab, the access key and secret key will be present if you did not make it as a wildcard. Okay, so that means it is you're displaying some sensitive information. Okay, so these are some surveys if you see here, like how they are testing using the vulnerabilities. Okay, like open dependency checks, and if you see here, it is like 57% they have. Okay, and how they test for common vulnerabilities. So these are nothing but the security different type of testing they are doing. Okay, when they have their CI/CD pipelines. Okay, I'm just going to give you two type of use cases. Okay, one is a use case of normal cloud regular DevSecOps, and other thing is little semi DevOps, semi ops, not fully DevSecOps. Okay. Okay. So initially, if I'm going to do a particular thing, you'll be giving a training on both the platforms. Okay, like which stack it is, and what is a, let's say is Azure, and I'm using DevOps pipeline. So it is fully integrated and automated. So that means I need to push only the code. So that means I need to know what are the environmental variables I need to configure and the build environment. Okay, I need to do all those things. Okay, it sounds little, but once you started doing DevOps full pipeline, right, you should not have any problems then. Okay, you should not implement, like out of 10 tasks you implement 4, then after integrating you implement. No, you will have a problem. Okay, so that's where you decide and you implement. And I have Visual Studio, which will have some integration well with Azure, so I can easily push. Okay, and one more good example is there is a Microsoft Teams is there, so you can integrate with your GitHub or your all the environment of your Azure DevOps. So each time whenever the code is being pushed, okay, it comes to your team members whether it can be approved or not. So there might be a guy who can internally review it, okay, whether the code is approved or not. It will come to you in the teams because they have the integration fully, right? So that gives you a leverage. So that means each individual or somebody is pushing the the code. A team member will be aware that the code is committed or somebody has approved it or it has been rolled back. Okay, so they'll be noting it. So if they are working in different pieces, okay, so they'll come to know, okay, this has happened. So that means they are collaborated. Okay, so yeah, and brands policy. GitHub, you can define whether any third party can commit or not, or employee can commit to the particular branch or not. Okay, so there can be many policies will be there only in GitHub itself. Okay, again it depends. Okay, so you need to decide how you're implementing that policy, whether you're matching with your IAM. So that means whether you're having a local Active Directory or your Azure Active Directory, which is integrated together. Okay, so you can tell them, so first this guy has a permission or not. So if he has a permission, then he's allowed to commit or not. Okay, then you can have the policies like whether it is meets some standards or not, like keeping the gates. Okay, so these are the different things you can do in the things. And other thing is like you have this static and dynamic. Again, I told you before, you can integrate it. Mostly you can have SonarQube or you can have Checkmarx or somebody else. Or an Nexus for dynamic testing, or you can use Qualys for integration. So I found this one article here by Fredo Medium. Okay, this was very good. The previously you saw, right, the list of steps. So he has given a nice one. So if you see here, like you are pushing the code and different versions and all, and the Jenkins will be there. So you see here, all the different types of testings will be there. So I'll tell you, when you're doing a static testing, that will be nothing but your SonarQube will be integrated. So that means in the pipeline, you need to define a step. Okay, so whenever the code gets filled, okay, so you need to mention, for example, Maven means you need to mention a step that the container will run and check. Okay, so similarly, you can do for Dask. Okay, and dependency checking, for example, you have OWASP dependency. So add a plugin, okay, in the Jenkins tab and fix and define things what you need to. So what happens is it will scan your code and it will tell what are the dependencies issues there and it will report in. Okay, so in case if any security issue is there, you can use the Slack here to tell the developers, buddy, there's an issue in this particular code and it is failed. Okay, either in, and you can tell it in dependency checking or in a static or dynamic. Okay, so if you feel that everything is fine and everything, okay, so you can what you can do is all the containers, the code, right? So here, let's say when the code has been pushed, okay, then you can define which container it has to run. Okay, so for example, Maven means the Maven container will be there with a base image of Alpine or Ubuntu or something. So you pull the container, you pack the application, you run and you test it, okay, against the dynamic testing, okay, and you see the result and you can port it. And when you're doing a static also the same thing, you can run, you can either add a plugin and you can scan it, static code, or you can deploy it in a container and you can scan. Okay, so it's a choice up to you. So what you can do is once the container has been once the code has been tested, okay, what you can do is you can pull from the repository, okay, and pack together, and you can do a testing like on Encore or Player. You have different container testing tools. You can test it and then you can deploy it. Okay, so once you deploy it, here you have Kubernetes or you can have in a container format. Okay, so that will be a protection. So what are the result you're getting, put it in a SIEM and the security team can manage. Okay, so if you see here, you have this container security or privilege. So for example, you can define whether you need internet access or not, or full access to your base machine. That is your privilege. Okay, and same time it's like runtime protection is nothing but any malicious hook or any malicious thread or it's trying to interpret the runtime, so you can have this protection also. Okay, so these are some different architecture. Okay, so this is one of our internal, or I cannot say internal, so this is one of the application we have come across. So it's like the application is implemented into 2 containers, so that means or I can say 4 containers something. So basically HTTP in a one container and a database in a different container. Okay, now what happens here is the database and WebTair are in a different container. Okay, and here the concept is the Compose is being used. So that what is the use of Docker Compose is like whenever you do start and stop means you can no need to go to individual container and do. What you can do is add the container list, all this thing, let's say 7-8 containers, and you can define things. Okay, so you can automatically the Compose will be created. And other thing is it's very easy for the environment. Okay, you can immediately build the full environment. So a good example is you have different Docker files, you build it. Okay, you build the Docker. Okay, then what you do is in the Compose file you will be defining, okay, web container, security container, sorry, database container. Okay, so let's say you are starting it. So now let's say I want to add one more port in that. Okay, so that means you don't need to bring down the whole environment. No, what you can do is the Compose very good functionality is just go to the YAML file. Let's say 8022 is open, and in that port number you add -443 and do up. Okay, it will not fully destroy every components. It automatically will add the particular port and it will rebuild. Okay, so that is the functionality of this particular automation. Okay, so yeah, I told you before, right, which port is need to open and what code can be written. And and in this concept all the containers were being present in the Docker registry. So each time what happens when the pull is there, it goes to the Docker registry and it pulls. So that means in the particular environment you need to give login and password. Okay, so when you enter login and password, automatically it will be pulled. I mean that means the login password means will be stored in that particular machine. Okay, And proxy is being implemented, yes. So here, let's say I have my one container, it's a front end, okay, that is your website web tier, and other is a database. So you can in the compose file, you can just define in the particular YAML file, one is your web tier and other is a database, and you can open only one port. Okay, so automatically they too will have communication. Other ports of the database will be closed, and web tier and what do you call database tier can talk together. Okay, if you want to load balance of your SSL offloading, okay, you can have your Nginx or your what do you call Apache at the front end to offload your SSL. Okay, sometimes what happens is people who have the Cloudflare environment, okay, will keep their SSL keys in the Cloudflare. So it decrypts there, and automatically the request will be coming to your container. Okay, instead of implementing your own proxy environment. And next thing is, when you're implementing a microservice environment, you will be asking how the IP address are being assigned. Okay, so basically you can link the let's say if you have your Azure environment, okay, you have your base IP of your machine, so you can put it in the DNS. Okay, you can link it there. So whenever you're pushing the code from the GitHub or from the Jenkins, okay, so whenever it is taking there, right, so you need to make these changes and keep. Okay, so automatically it will take the particular IP address and it will get deployed. And yeah, so you need to spend a lot of amount of time whenever you're writing this YAML file. The reason is, can you see the above 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, okay, whichever I told you. So you need to plan. So I need to write, okay, so whenever I invoke a web tier, it automatically needs to first go to the Docker file and it needs to run the list of commands. Okay, so building the environment. And similarly, when I go for the database, it automatically needs to install everything, and it needs to make a web tier. So what you'll do, docker compose up. So automatically your from protection, all the dependencies, environments, passwords, secrets, everything will be deployed. It will be ready. Okay, so that means whenever you're pushing from your CI/CD pipeline, when you trigger this particular code, okay, automatically it'll get deployed. Okay, so that's where you need to be careful. So there will be some problems here, and the thing is, the sensitive variables, right, in an environmental variable. So there you will put some secret key or AWS key in that. Okay, so you need to have the secret management to manage that. Okay, so those are issues. And second thing is, whenever you're pushing from CI to CD, I mean the deployment side, okay, your intention will be just to, let's say if the container goes down or something, I need to have some backup or something. Okay, the problem is current level, the container backup is not that much easy and it's a little complex. So some people what may do is they'll have a shared folder with the host. Okay, so that means whatever is there in the container will be access given into the host folder. Okay, again I'm saying, if the proper permission is not given to any users, okay, they can try to access the folder, copy the code, and they can take it. Okay, so you should be very careful. Okay, so those are some issues. Detailed information. So if I got hold of your YAML file, I know, see, this many containers are running, this many folders are there. So sometimes the secret key will be linked to a particular file. So I can know everything. Okay, so how do you manage? And other thing is, the full privilege permission will be given. So that means whenever I'm pushing a container, right? So let's say I'm pushing the code, okay, for the full package to the container. Okay, so what happens is, in the front end, I can have internet for resolving or accessing something, but at the back end in the database, in the container, I don't need internet. Okay, so that means whenever you're running a script, okay, you should not give privileged access. Okay, so that's why microservice plays a vital role in this DevSecOps environment. Okay, because each time when you push, right, the code, okay, So you can do is if you push, it automatically builds the environment and it gets deployed and checks all the process there, then it is there. So imagine if you have frequency of more than 5,000 or 10,000 per month. Okay, so you should be very careful in what permission you're giving and the complex scenario. Yeah, another thing is architecture is very, very important. So sometimes what happens is when you're implementing, let's say a very good example is when you're trying to trigger from your CI or in your Ansible or anything, like for example, it will be in YAML version 3, the folder, okay. But when you try to, in your code, okay, you have YAML version 2, okay. But in the YAML version 3, some sensitive information will not be there. I mean, the syntax will be different. Okay. For example, in this 2, you have some exposed to some secrets or something, but whereas in 3, it will be in a different context. But what happens is when you upgrade it, the function will not be work, or you should spend amount of time to understand how 3 works. Okay. So again, you should be very careful on that. Okay. So that means what level of security you're implementing. So the one is let's say you will be implementing Kubernetes, very good example, and you will put in Nginx load balancing. So you're integrating it. Let's say when you're implementing Kubernetes, if there will be different pods will be there, right? So let's say there is a API will be there, API key, API expose. Okay. So if I got hold of that particular API, I can get the tokens. Okay. So yeah, so you should be very careful in how you're managing the load balance. And as I told before, we are talking about serverless, right? So very good example is, let's say whenever the code is being pushed to the environment, okay, in the post production or the production environment. Let's say every time, every week, it has to start automatically, or it has to run, for example, compliance check. Okay. So you have written some Python code. It is along with Boto. It is present in Lambda, and each time when it is pushed, it has to run some compliance. Okay. So that time, if are you storing any security keys or information inside that particular code, or how you are using it? Okay. Are you using CloudWatch, Cloud Trail, and along with S3? Because whenever you're running this thing, you will be storing in the result in the S3 bucket. So how do you store your S3 bucket? Is it private, public? Who can access? What role is given? Who can trigger this function? Okay. So these are the security things which we need to take care. And finally, I can say, so this is nothing but the whole reference. What we saw is, I was giving you some example of CI, CD, and one good example is a simple CI DevSecOps pipeline. But if you see this environment, right, end to end, okay, you have this, this is by Sonata type, I believe. This gave their reference, end to end, different technology, and they have implemented each and every security things. Okay, so now imagine if a security team is there and you have developer team, how people are equipped to handle this many technologies and this many environments. If you are handling a full production, fully automated, okay, so in case if any failure or something, how do you revert it? Okay, so in case if it is failing and is not going back, okay, so how do you need to remove because of pressure from your company to pass the code? Okay, so those are the things, it's very important. DevSecOps, a full platform, so there is a maturity level, maturity 1, maturity 2, and maturity 3. Okay, you can measure your dev environment and assess it first, like how do we progress, what choose and what all. Okay, so that's why it is so complex. Okay, so these are my references which I have taken from this, the pictures and the diagram. Yep.